Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of One for Israel's... Oh, I hear somebody outside. One for Israel's Semitic video, part number 9. So sit tight, guys. We'll be right there. All right. Somebody's coming over today to pick up a bike, and I just heard it rumble, and I couldn't figure out what in the world that noise was, but now I figured out what it was. So, all right, let me see. Hang on one second. I'm gonna pass this off to you right away because I'm gonna go meet them outside. So anyway, welcome, guys. Again, this is part 9, and we'll be doing part 10 right after this. So if you guys want to stick around, you'll be able to see it. Okay. All right, Rabbi, take it away.
Just let me know when you're back.
Go ahead. You can go ahead and go. I've got you live to go.
We're going to continue now. Go back to some things that they're bringing from the rabbis, trying to indicate that Judaism is a very bad thing, whatever. Now let's continue. The next thing is they pass it off to a fellow there whose name I do not know, and what he's going to talk to them about these things now that they're considered that either women or Gentiles are considered in very negative lights. So let's see what he does here. He brings here that there is a blessing that's said in every day by Jewish men, which is true, that says, Shelo yasani goy, Shelo yasani goy, Shelo yasani uvid, Shelo yasani isha, that Hashem didn't make me a non-Jew, Hashem didn't make me a slave, a special type of slave that is partially converted, is circumcised and is a slave for a Jewish person, but is non-Jewish, and Shelo yasani isha, or a woman. Before discussing a little bit more about this, he's going to bring up some things about this. What I'd like to quote is Dr. Brown in, I guess it's an upcoming book on Christian anti-Semitism, actually discusses this subject as to these blessings that they say. And let me read what he says here. Let me give you just a few examples, and then I'll refer you to some videos and written material that will help you evaluate these charges for yourself. We'll start with Menuchot 43b to 44a. Which we have been told teaches that Jewish man is obligated to say the following prayer every day. Thank you, God, for not making me a Gentile, a woman, or a slave. Wrong order, but that's fine. That is actually true, but it doesn't mean what you might take it to mean. Instead, it has to do with the responsibility to observe the law, something that Jews regard as a gift. In other words, contrary to the common Christian viewpoint, which basically says, thank God I'm not under the law, a traditional Jew says, thank God for the gift of the Torah. See Psalm 19 and 119 for similar points of view. 119 is a very, very long chapter of Psalms, and every verse refers to the law in some way or another, and how beautiful it is. Now, if you were a Gentile, you would not be required to observe the entire Torah, since it was given to Israel, not the nations. The same holds true if you were a Jewish woman. There are certain commandments you would be exempt from keeping due to uniquely female situations, which would not allow you to observe certain laws. There are also certain laws, by the way, that apply just to a woman, not to a man. Finally, if you were a slave, you would not be able to keep the entire Torah because of your lack of freedom. Only a free male Jew is considered responsible to observe the Torah. And for this privilege, he thanks God every morning. Yes, the privilege of being required to keep all the laws and commandments. That is something positive. Well, Dr. Brown gets it right, which you have to say something is very nice, unlike our one for Israel readers of anti-Semitic works. Don't get it right. Dr. Brown gets it right. It's exactly true. We thank Hashem for many things that he does for us good. And the primary good, the biggest good that Hashem does to us is he's given us the Torah and the ability to do it. So we start off saying we thank Hashem that we're not non-Jews, because a non-Jew, while there is 7 commandments that we believe that non-Jews have, the Noahide commands, that leaves out a lot of things, including things like circumcision, for example, which they're not required to do, which we are, so we're very happy for that. So we're happy that we're not a non-Jew, because that second category is a slave. This is a non-Jewish slave who has been circumcised, but has not done a complete conversion, is still a slave. If they were free, they could become Jewish, obviously. So this person is also not required to do many of the commandments. He's required to do certain commandments. He's not allowed to do other things. He's not free either. And finally, a woman, there's many things a woman is not allowed required to do, circumcision, obviously, but many other commandments are discussed that are not required. So this is exactly what the story is. We thank Hashem for what he's done for us and what he's made us. Now they continue here, whereas Dr. Brown has brought the understanding of it that we have, which is with traditional understanding going back very long. They bring a teaching in a work called Surah Hamor from Avraham Saba. Now, before I do this, let me just discuss a couple things that they make errors about. First of all, they claim that he was a head rabbi during the Spanish Inquisition, and that is actually not correct. I looked it up, and he was not a head rabbi. He was a rabbi there. He wrote a commentary. He wrote commentaries, not different kinds of commentaries, actually more like sermons on the Torah and other things. And this particular passage that I bring here, where he said, they claim that he says that a woman is a curse. The reason why we don't say he didn't make a woman, because a woman is a curse. It's a curse to be a woman. Again, that's what it said. That's not actually what he says, and we'll get to what he says in a minute. Okay, but this is not a legal material. This is not telling the legal things. This is part of his homiletic discussion of something. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give us very good information as where to find it. It took them quite a while to find it, but I was able to find the works Surah Hamor, which again, as I said, is a commentary on the biblical text. This particular person lived about the time of the explosions in Spain, but he was not let me find the page. He was not a rabbi, he's not like a rabbi from the city or anything like that. He was a very learned man, whatever, about that. Okay, now, let's have a little bit of context. One of the problems with this is don't bring the context. The context here is a very interesting one. It's in parts of the Yaitse, which tells about the birth of the children to Yaakov. And it's talking about his particular discussion about the birth of one of the sons of Leah called Usher. So he has a little discussion here about something interesting. The Usher has a blessing for his daughters, which is very unusual. Usually the blessings that we find are given for sons, and in agricultural societies, which Israel was at that time, Jacob gave a blessing for sons, because sons, of course, are very important. Remember that also the land is divided based on the houses, which are based on the male side, not from the female side. So there would be a problem if you had daughters. You could actually lose part of your inheritance and stuff like that, going to other tribes. And the discussion actually comes up in the Torah and other places. He asked the question, why is it specifically that the tribe of Usher was the daughters were blessed? Now, in the English, he says that he didn't make me a woman because a woman is a curse. But that's not what it says in the Hebrew. The Hebrew says something different, which is slightly different, but extremely important to understand the difference, because it makes us understand what's going on here. It's not that a woman is blessed. It says he didn't make a woman, since a woman is a sign of a curse, meaning the literal means a sign of curse, but it means it's not a good sign. It's not a good thing. That a female is not a good thing. Why? Because when you have land, a female doesn't inherit. And if she marries somebody from a different tribe, then the land goes out to the other tribe. There's all discussions what happened in Jubilee year when it comes back, but now that we don't have a Jubilee, it would like be lost part of your inheritance. Remember, the tribes in the Bible were given certain lands, and if a woman married somebody outside of her tribe, and she, had some kind of inheritance from that, it would go to another tribe. There's a story actually in the Torah about it. That one of the descendants of Moshe did not have any male heirs; he had only daughters. And so at the end of the book of Leviticus, we find that they were required to marry their relatives from the same tribe in order that they should not lose their land. So that's the context what you're talking about here. It's not a very good sign if for your inheritance, because your inheritance can actually be lost by somebody that you marry out, unless you're married in the same tribe. So that's what it is. So they ask the question as to why it is that in this particular case, that Usher's daughters were mentioned, and it says that the Usher's daughters were actually a very big blessing because they were very, very fine and they had very great very good character traits, and because of that, they were blessed. But the Iga point here is saying that is what he's saying is not that girls are cursed. In fact, the daughters of Usher were not cursed at all. So he'd be contradicting himself. What he's saying is that in general, having daughters is not a good sign. meaning that you would lose your inheritance, and that's what the point is trying to make here. They mentioned again the order, who's not made me a non-Jew, who's not made me a slave, who's not made a woman, and as Dr. Brown pointed out, it's actually going from the lowest level to the highest level. The lowest level would be a non-Jew because a non-Jew has no responsibility to the Torah to do it, whereas a Jew does. And then a slave, a circumcised slave, is a little bit higher level, and a woman is a higher level than that. Okay, so as Dr. Brown pointed out, the reason why we're doing it is not because of something particularly negative, but we're praising Hashem because we have the great merit to be able to do the biblical commands. From there, he moves on to a discussion of how the Torah deals with non-Jews. Now, there's a fellow named Gil Student who deals with these things in general a lot, and it's just very interesting to see that trying to make a big deal about the way Jews deal with non-Jews, when the history, which we're going to eventually go to, of non-Jewish dealing with Jews has always been quite negative, especially Christians. So he brings a source which is unfindable. As I said, with Tzur Hamor, where he mentions this from does not relate to actually where it's there. It says which parsha it's in, but he gives some things that makes it difficult to find. I was able to find it. This one I wasn't able to find, though. The David, he says that the David says something in Hilchos Shechita. Now, if he means David's commentary on the Rambam, Hilchos Shechita, it doesn't appear there at the place where they say. It says Hilchos Shechita 4, I don't know, means chapter 4 or whatever, but I checked there and it wasn't there anywhere. So it's not clear what he said. What he says, they claim it says that Gentiles are like beasts, they're like donkeys. Okay. In the next passage, we're not going to go look at it because the source for that is actually a verse in the prophets. But there's no context. We have no clue what it is. I don't even see how it would actually mention into the slaughtering at all. So I don't know where it is. It could be the bogus thing. They had it the wrong name, something like that. But we can discuss exactly what is the issue being involved here. And I think that I have a pretty good idea, at least which verse they're talking about. Now, the next selection they bring is, again, a work called Poket Ikrim. Again, they give no idea who this is from. And they don't tell anybody, and they give a location to it, but they don't say who this is. They expect everybody, somebody listening to this has no idea. Is this guy a very great rabbi? What is this? What is this talking about? What is the concept? Nothing. They just throw it out there and accept their word as if it's true. So, of course, we've seen until now that we can't really trust what they have to say because they have distorted things from the Rambam, as we pointed out, and from other sources, taking things totally out of context. Well, this is the same case here. They not only take it out of context, but actually the context involves verses in the Tanakh itself. Now, they claim that this rabbi says the same thing, that Gentiles are all donkeys and not humans. Okay, that they're actually beasts shaped like humans. That's actually what, that they are beasts shaped like humans. They're not humans, they're beasts shaped like humans. Okay, very important. This is an absolute lie. Now, the particular work here, Poket Ikrim, is a work by Reb Tzuda Kakoyan from Lublin. As some people have the ability to find things that they throw out there and look them up. Now, this particular section where it appears is a discussion about circumcision. And he's giving a homiletic reason as to why it is that a Jew has to circumcise and a non-Jew doesn't. What's the difference? So what he's going to argue here, and he says in a few places, not just what they say, but it says what he said. He says, listen, we see something in the prophets. The prophet in Jeremiah 11:15. Yeah, in 11:15. I'll read it in English and I'll tell you what the words are in Hebrew, actually. What has my beloved to do with my temple while she, great ones, carries about out her illicit Well, the sacred flesh has passed away from you. Here's referring to sacred flesh, is referring to the people there. As the Hebrew says in it, Basar Kodesh, holy flesh, holy skin, holy flesh. Flesh means like the meat of the person. Okay, not the body, but the meat of the person. So here it's talking about the Jewish people and calling them holy skin. And Abtula relates that to circumcision, that taking away the foreskin is taking away the unholy part of it and leaving only the holy part of skin there. Now, the reason why the non-Jews don't have to do it is based on Ezekiel 23:20. Ezekiel 23:20 says this, referring to the nations around Israel. Here it says, let's do 19. Then she increased her adulteries, remembering the days of her youth, when she was promiscuous in the land of Egypt. She lusted for the concubinage of those whose flesh is the flesh of donkeys and whose issue is issue of horses. Okay, the actual words in Hebrew are Basar Chamorim, Basar. Their meat is donkey meat. Okay, it's not saying they look like donkeys or they are donkeys. It's the meat is compared to that, meaning that it's not holy. Okay, that's the way it's been understood. It's being not holy, and so this is what Reb Tzudek is talking about. The Bible makes a distinction between the holiness of the physical body of a Jew, the holiness of the flesh, as opposed to a non-Jew. Non-Jew's flesh is not holy. So being uncircumcised is not a problem, but for a Jew to have that, since that particular part is considered unclean, not kodesh, not holy, that has to be removed to just leave just the holy part behind it. That's what he's talking about. He's not saying that non-Jews are donkeys or anything to that whatsoever. In fact, he's only actually using the verses itself to show the distinction that the Jew has to circumcise himself because it's a particular type of holiness that Hashem has commanded the Jewish people only. Has nothing to do with that whatsoever. The next passage is taken from Isaac Luria, his work Eitz Chaim. The problem with that is in general, I do not talk about Kabbalistic things and explain it. But he says that quotes, Gentiles do not have a soul or spirit. Actually, the word is he doesn't have a ruach v'neshama. Okay? And he also talks about the levels of the souls in comparison to kosher animals. I'll talk about that as a second, or different. I'll try to explain it a little bit without getting into it. First of all, there is only one soul. Everybody has a soul. I wrote an article on the difference between Jewish and non-Jewish souls. It's on my website, Judaism Answer, but I'll summarize what it's talking about here. A person has a soul. The level of your soul, you're born with a certain level, and it gets greater and greater, so that we say it gets enough, it gets added to it, something like the ruach gets added to it, or the shema gets added to it, which are, according to in his writings, these are higher levels. So how do you get it? How does your soul expand, if you want to put it that way? That's probably a better way. So you start off with a level of soul called nefesh, and it expands, and then you get to the level of ruach, and expands farther, gets to the shema. How does your soul get to the expansion? It's the expansion from performing the commandments. Hashem commanded you to put on tefillin, you put on tefillin every day, your soul expands a little bit, okay? It gets an expansion. And also by avoiding those things Hashem's not to do. So for example, not eating non-kosher food. So by that, Hashem commanded the Jew not to do. By not doing it, it helps your soul to expand. That's what the Arizal explains as being, okay? As far as the issue of kosher food and kosher non-animals, it's like this. Everything has, according to everything has a soul. A certain level of soul. Kosher animals have a certain level of soul, and non-kosher, the difference being is that kosher animals can be used for kosher things, and the non-kosher things can't be. In the same way, a non-Jew does not have the mitzvahs of the Torah, and so the level that they can reach now is limited. When if a non-Jew converts, for example, they can reach the level of anybody else. In fact, they have the ability to even go higher. There is a passage in Shal Gilgilim from the Arizal, which indicates that the souls of those people who convert, who come from such a place like that and do convert, are actually very high, even many times much higher than a born Jew soul. So it's total misunderstanding what it's saying. Jews are not, non-Jews are, the level of a soul that everybody gets, whether Jew or non-Jew, is based basically on the mitzvahs. Since a non-Jew does not have the commandments that they have to do, their soul has only a limit as far as they can go. But if a non-Jew would convert, the sky's the limit, however they want to go. That's how it works out. Your soul, the power of your soul, the greatness of your soul, is based on following what Hashem wants to do. Okay, so it's based on a misunderstanding about different levels of souls for Jews and non-Jews. Okay, the next one that they discuss is from the Mechilta. The Mechilta is a commentary on the book of Exodus. Particularly in the book of Exodus. And it talks about the exodus from Egypt, Parshas Bo, exodus from Egypt, B'Shalach, the splitting of the Red Sea, and then giving of Torah in Parshas Yisro. Now, the supposed quote is that it says it is good to kill Gentiles in English. The Hebrew says the best of the Gentiles should be killed. Now, Dr. Brown explains it. I want to explain in the text, and also Dr. Brown explains in other places what they say. The text here is based on the verse that appears in the Torah, and this is what the verse says. That when the Jewish people fled from Egypt, Pharaoh took, and his people took with him, 600 chariots with him. So it asks a very interesting question. Where did they, I'm just doing a translation as I go on, where did they get the animals from that were able to pull their chariots? If you say it's from the Egyptians, we know that they were already killed, because it says that the animals of the Egyptians were killed in Exodus 9:6. And if you say that there were, if you say it was from Pharaoh's itself, there's already a verse that says that Hashem destroyed them that were in the field. That's verse 3 in the same paragraph. However, if you say it's for the Jewish people, it already says that they take them out with them, and they didn't leave anything behind. So from where did these animals come from? Where did he get them? A very important question. So the Medrash answers, however, these were from those Egyptians who feared Hashem. And because they feared Hashem, they didn't leave it out in the fields, which is where Pharaoh's things were destroyed. They took them inside, so that they were actually still left alive. So Mekan, from this, Rabbi Shimon said, the good from the Gentiles should be killed. That's what appears in some of our texts. But the older text has the good ones from the Egyptians should be killed, which is a context very good. Fits the context, meaning that here we see that these were Egyptians, and even though they were supposedly fearing God, they were still evil people who came and supported going after killing the Jewish people. The context here is obviously dealing with people who were coming to kill the Jewish people, and it means specifically the Egyptians. Now, Dr. Brown discusses this also, and he says a little bit differently, slightly different, but it's the same thing, similar same idea. In reality, what this means in context is that in war, one must kill enemy soldiers, even if they are righteous people, meaning, which is basically what it is here. Okay? Now, we will discuss a little bit later about what Judaism really thinks about non-Jews. But let me continue here. We talk about, or they've talked about what Judaism thinks about non-Jews. Why don't we look and see what it says in the New Testament, what Jesus himself says about non-Jews. So, let's look at Matthew 15, verse 21 through 28. Okay? Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and Sidon. Just then a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David, my daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all, totally ignored her. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us? He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Now I'd like you to contrast this with another famous story in the Tanakh where Naaman, who was a big general in a Gentile army, came to Elisha and asked him to cure him from his leprosy. And he immediately took him in. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. He answered, it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. So, whatever you might think about the Jewish people, of course, we don't call non-Jews dogs, which is what Jesus did. Now, if you look at Mark 26 through 7:26 through 29, again, now the woman was a Gentile, so it's the same story. She begged him to catch on, and he said to her, let the children be fed first, for it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Again, that appears to be a statement from Jesus, pretty well, referring to non-Jews as dogs. Again, unlike the biblical story of Elisha actually having healed somebody who was a non-Jew, here, the exact opposite of the case. But what does Judaism really hold? Well, there's a very, very famous statement in the Medrash called Eliyahu et Abba. And in the 9th chapter, towards the very beginning, here's what I say, I'll just translate as I go along. I am bringing witness from heaven and earth that whether a person is a Jew or a non-Jew, here the word is akka, meaning an idolater even, whether the person is a man or woman, whether they are a slave or a female servant, everything depends on what they do. Whatever they do, so the spirit of holiness will rest upon them. That's what Judaism says. Everybody, whether Jew or Gentile, you're judged by what you do, and the spirit of holiness will rest upon them. It's very well known that from Tractate Sanhedrin, and the Rambam talks about specifically, that it says, that the pious ones of the nations have a place in the world to come. We talk about the 7 mitzvahs of B'nai Noach, the Rambam talks about that, but the piety and the actions of a non-Jew will merit them, anyone, to have a place in the world to come. There's no idea that the non-Jews are like dogs or of no value. No, the non-Jews also have a place in the world to come. Okay, we'll stop here for right now, and the next one will be a little bit more fun. We are going to put the shoe on the other foot and examine some of the things from Christianity. Here they try to say what Christians say about non-Jews, what Jews say about non-Jews. Let's see what Christians say about Jews. Okay?
Okay,
Thank
that
you
sounds
very
good.
much.
All right.
Next one.
Very good. All right. See you soon.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד